Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Patrick back on a Veterans View. And today I just kind of wanted to go over in a little bit more detail kind of what to expect stimulus wise, kind of as we move forward and transition into a Biden administration. So, as it currently stands, we've got the second stimulus that was just approved about 10 days ago now by President Trump. And we know we've got the Cash Act that President Trump had called for and that the House passed, but the Senate would not hear, to increase our stimulus checks to $2,000 instead of the $600 that they are. And kind of the way I'm looking at that is that Cash Act is kind of it's stimulus two part two. Because the Cash Act in and of itself was kind of a standalone bill specific to stimulus payments. So what it looks like is what's going to be, or who's going to be the new Senate Majority Leader is going to be Senator Chuck Schumer from New York, and he is all for the $2,000 payments that are in the Cash Act. And from what it seems like is day one of Joe Biden's presidency, they are pretty much going to ram this through as quick as they can. So that kind of encompasses stimulus part two. We already know Joe Biden's working on a third stimulus in terms of what he wants the third to look like. And from the sound of things, I kind of put together a list here of kind of the key highlights that Joe Biden's looking at. So one of the first ones is a large majority of economists across the U.S. are saying that this last stimulus check, that $900 billion, flat out just wasn't enough money. So they're predicting that in order to get everything that we need in the U.S. to get more funding, to get funding for state and local governments, to make sure that we have money for distribution of the vaccine, to make sure people who have lost their jobs are able to at least provide for their families without having, to worry about, are they going to get evicted? Are they going to have enough money to put food on the table for their families? So they're saying a $3 trillion price tag. So here's kind of some of the highlights that we know Joe Biden wants. We know he is going to want more stimulus money. We just do not know the amount he's going to want. We also know, and for that amount, like I said, we don't know what the amount is. Some of our more progressive members of the House and of the Senate have called for it'd be very similar to like a universal basic income. I know Andrew Yang, when he was running for president on the Democrat side, in essence what it does is it provides a set amount of money to a family every month. Guaranteed, no strings attached. Now, what they're looking at for this is the universal basic income. A bunch of the members who have called for it are talking about doing it retroactive to the beginning of the pandemic. Joe Biden has not necessarily let his thoughts be known in terms of how he feels about that. But Joe Biden does seem like he really, really, really wants to do everything in his power to get as much support to the American people as possible. So that is not out of the realm of possibility. State and local funding. States have really borne the brunt of COVID in terms of, trying to ramp up everything across the state. At the very beginning, it was, PPE, and every state was in a bidding war with one another, outbidding each other, in competition as well with the federal government. So states, in order to get the equipment they needed, they ended up paying these astronomical prices. And, the states have just, kind of, I mean, I guess for lack of a better term, they've ran out of money. I know here in California, they cut, like I mentioned in my last video, they cut all state employee pay by 10%. And what they're mainly worried about is just moving forward and how they're going to balance their budget next time, because this is going to drag on and states are more and more going to run out of money. Hazard pay for essential workers has been another big one. And the hazard pay, I've seen some different figures kind of rolling around in terms of the amounts that they're looking for, but it looks like it hovers right around the $8,000 to $10,000 mark. Now the thing I don't know is what definition of hazard pay, or I'm sorry, what definition of essential worker would the federal government be going after? And because that could target a large number of people. And I'm sure in terms of helping people, that would be absolutely phenomenal and crucial. They're also looking at an additional $200 a month for SSI, SSDI, and veterans. And their reasoning behind that is those three categories of people are more likely to be on a fixed income, and COVID has just thrown a monkey wrench into that fixed income, and just getting their traditional cost of living adjustments just isn't going to be enough to keep up. Now, the way I understand it, this $200 a month is only going to go through the end of the pandemic. So once the pandemic has been determined to have ended, that extra $200 would go away. Another one that they're looking at is, back at the beginning of the pandemic, the first bill that we had, the CARES Act, had $600 a month, or I'm sorry, $600 per week, additional compensation on top of your weekly state compensation for unemployment benefits. Now that ended at the end of July, and they would like to, that $600 a month, or I'm sorry, I keep saying $600 a month, that $600 per week, they want to make that also retroactive back to when the first $600 payments ran out. On top of that, he wants additional money for PPP loans, more of the EIDL grants for businesses and for individuals operating businesses that have taken some financial loss. Another one that's really big for Joe Biden is the Eviction Moratorium. He wants to totally do away with evictions until the end of this year, which would be phenomenal for anybody who, is in one of those affected categories where they're worried that they could become homeless. And as what's currently estimated, now this could change as time goes on, but as it currently stands, they're saying between 11 and 14 million Americans could potentially face homelessness if the current eviction moratorium that was extended until the end of January was to go away. He also wants to get more money for PPE, the personal protective equipment, especially for businesses, so that as we are able to continue to open the economy, that businesses have everything at their disposal to open as safely as possible, and to also reduce the burden on those business owners who have already been burdened quite significantly, depending on what line of work or what type of business it is. It could be a pretty substantial amount of money. They're also looking at that continued increase to the SNAP program for a lot of the low income families and whatnot that want to be able to provide healthy and nutritional food to not only themselves but their kids. And then another one is more funding for the vaccine distribution, and also to ensure that for people who do not have insurance, that they have the ability to go in and get a COVID test without having to pay for it. In essence, it would be covered by the government, which once again would be stellar. So, as it currently stands, and with the last stimulus package that was put out, Joe Biden referred to it as a down payment. So we knew there was going to be, if, especially if the Democrats were able to maintain control of the Senate, we knew there was an increased likelihood that a third stimulus package was going to be coming out, and it was going to be quite substantial. We don't know exactly what range yet, but we're kind of guesstimating, low $2 trillion to probably low $3 trillion range. I mean, it really depends on with the Senate having, or with the Democrats having control of the Senate now, they only really need to persuade, for some of these large funding bills, they only need to persuade about 10 Republicans to actually vote for their legislation in order to prevent filibuster and whatnot from taking place. And we've already had quite a few Republican senators who have openly expressed that they want a lot of these additional benefits for their states and for their constituents. And they're not necessarily too concerned about the federal deficit. So, it really depends on the more Republicans they can get on their side in terms of passing meaningful relief, the more we could see in some of these bills in terms of funding, in terms of back pay, in terms of hazardous duty, or in terms of hazard pay. There's a lot of different things in here that could go. But pretty much the ones I touched on are definitely the key ones that, with the exception of the UBI potential, especially that being retroactive to the start of the pandemic, that's probably going to be a hard one to get. Also, the trying to get those increased unemployment benefits, the $600 per week, and getting that backdated is also probably going to be a little bit difficult for them. But in terms of a lot of, the other key items in the package, it would be a little bit different. And especially now, once again, with Democrats having control of the Senate, you may have some more Republicans who, when Mitch McConnell was the majority leader, they kind of felt like they needed to vote in line with what he wanted to do. But now that the ball's in the other court and the Democrats would have control, you could see some more Republican senators kind of branch off and view it as a, well, you know what, my party doesn't have control anymore, and what they could be thinking is, if this ends up backfiring, or when we talk about the debt next time, they can say, well, wait a second, whoa, you guys are the ones, who brought this bill to the floor and who proposed it. That's not our fault. And with how politicians work and how their brain works, I could see a lot of that happening. So once again, guys, as I grow my channel, as I get more content out there, every single like that I can get from you guys would be stellar. So if you guys like this content, please hit the like button. Let me know in the comments kind of what you're hoping for, if you have any ideas what you might like to see in the stimulus package. And then also subscribe to my channel. I'm going to be, right now I'm kind of doing some on the stimulus, but the main part of my channel is just going to be, positivity for 2021 and incremental changes we can make throughout our lives, 2021, to make sure that by the end of the year, regardless of what happens this year, if you focus on bettering yourself and the members of your family by the end of 2021, even if this year is just as bad as 2020, you can look back and say, look, we adopted these changes and we are better off now in a lot of ways than maybe we would have been. So with that, I'll talk to you guys later. Take care.